Welcome to the Portal Podcast on In Tune by Britt, your gateway to energy, abundance, and next level freedom. I'm Britt, and here we merge spiritual alignment with practical systems so you can expand your impact, your intuition, and your income. So take a deep breath, tune in, and let's step through the portal together. Welcome back to the Portal Podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. I was just a guest on Lauren of Love's podcast. It's called The World Needs Your Medicine, and I'm going to be having her on this podcast coming out soon. So I've been doing that today. I am so excited for more guests coming on the show. If you have topics that you want me to go over, email me, and also comment on my YouTube videos. If you're watching me on YouTube, I'm recording this. I got all my microphones. I got my studio. I got my light. I got my camera. Today I got my pressed juice. It's fun to watch. So I would love for you to comment on the YouTube and help me blow this up, grow this mission. I'm super excited for everything that we're doing here. Everything happening at In Tune by Britt is growing and getting really exciting. My money minting crew has been amazing. My Portal Mastermind members are just one of my favorite places to be. And I'm working with spiritual entrepreneurs more. I launched my Kundalini teacher training. So it is starting September 26th. So I thought this would be a good time in general to talk about Kundalini Yoga today. So I love talking about Kundalini Yoga. I have an intro to Kundalini course that we did a while back that I definitely want to update, but it's the foundations that you need on Studio In Tune, my app. And I've been talking about Kundalini for years. There's so many amazing creators on Instagram who teach Kundalini, who practice Kundalini. It is all over the world and it's exciting. And of course, with anything, with any practice, and especially when there's been controversy with people involved, there's going to be people that love it and are so excited by it and understand it and get it and take the good from it. And then there's going to be the haters. And especially recently, because we had the Breath of Fire documentary come out. I think it came out last year. And then in 2020, a lot of allegations came out and a book was written around Yogi Bhajan. So I just wanted to talk about my take on Kundalini Yoga, share a little bit more about the technology, the teaching, what's happening, why it works, how it works, why I'm so obsessed with it, how incredible it has been and continues to be for me and thousands of my students. And also I do want to dive into some of just controversy. And if you maybe haven't practiced it, but you've seen Breath of Fire or you've been hearing about it and you want to try it, but you're not really sure because there's some negative stuff about it out there. I just want to share my perspective so that you hear it from me, where it comes from, how it works, and just a little bit more about everything that's being said in a really grounded, clear, neutral way. So just in general, I think of Kundalini Yoga as a tool. It's not something to worship. I don't think you should worship anything. When I say obsessed, I'm just excited about it. I love it. I am just so honored to practice it and teach it because of what I experience from it as a tool. It's also not anything to fear, and it's a tool for awareness and transformation. So at the end of the day, this is a tool, and what matters is how it actually impacts your life and how you use it and how you relate to it. And there's people that relate to all different things in all different ways. And so the way that I was taught, the way that I practice it, and the way that I teach it and pass it on is a way where you relate to it in a really healthy way, where it supports you and can give you so many benefits and transformation. It's really vast, and the depth that I've been able to experience is really profound because I've been teaching for a little over 12 years and I've been practicing for almost 15 now. Okay, so I'm going to first go in to a little bit more on the history of yoga, the 4 different paths of all of the yoga and where Kundalini fits into that. And I think it is hard to find out this information exactly because it is an ancient practice. Yoga in general is a very ancient practice. It's been around thousands and thousands of years. And then there's all these different families of it. There's these different paths, and people have created different ways of using the practice. You know, if you think of like Joseph Pilates, he created Pilates, which was kind of a combination of a bunch of other movements. There's, you know, people that have created different ways of using practices. There's been different yogas formed in all different ways throughout history and different exercise methods. But Kundalini Yoga is different. It's a technology. But I do want to start off with like the 4 paths of yoga that is traditionally understood and taught. I think one thing to note before I go into this as well is when you look at like the Vedic text or kind of the oldest scriptures where yoga was written down and where you can actually find record of it, like the Upanishads and the Vedic text. It's like, the way that I feel about it is it's like reading Shakespeare or something, right? Like when you look into ancient text, it's obviously not how we talk right now. It's so different. So I think that's why it's a little bit hard to exactly trace back all of the history of all of the yogas and how they all tied together, how they were all formed, how they're all connected, and all of that, because it's just interpreting ancient language and ancient text. And it's very different than the way that we speak and interpret and share now. And obviously, just like anything, things have changed and modernized and passed down. And a lot of people don't like that because it was typically started not in the West. Kundalini dates back to India, and all of the yoga is not from this country initially. And so I understand that that can be challenging because it gets changed and it adapts and it moves. But to me, if we use it as a tool and a technology for what it is, and if we use it for good, and if we honor it, and if we use it to better ourselves, our mind, body, and spirit, and we use it to help other people, then I think it's a really powerful and empowering tool and force that should be available to everyone, regardless of where you're from, the color of your skin, where you were born, or where you lived. So back to the 4 paths. So the main 4 paths, the foundation of the different types of yoga as it's been explained is number 1, the karma, which is more about action. Then you have like the bhakti, which is more about devotion and service. Then you have jhana, which is more about knowledge. And then you have the raja, which is like self-mastery. So those are typically the 4 paths of enlightenment, the 4 paths of yoga that the different types of yoga typically fall into. And these are the different paths into yoga, but then there are also the actual systems of the practice. Okay. So then there's systems, and that's where I see from my research and everything that I've learned and put together and researched, and I've gone down a lot of pathways on this to try to get a clear understanding, is that there's different than systems. And so there's the Tantra system, which is a lot about energy and transformation and using your energy. And then there's the Laya system, which is the dissolution of patterns within you. And then there's the Kundalini that's within that line. So it's connected to the Tantra and the Laya. And so it sits inside this much bigger system. It's not just this random practice, but Kundalini specifically is using the chakra system. It's about awareness. It's about dissolving and releasing old patterns, old identities, the subconscious, and it uses the mind, body, spirit to do that. So Carl Jung talks a lot about the Kundalini energy. There's also many different ways that people talk about yoga and technology and practices because it is touching on a lot of different areas. There's the physiological side of it. There's the psychological side of it. There's the spiritual side of it. So there's all these different realms and uses as a human that you can use yoga. And so there's these different interpretations, and people like Carl Jung was looking at it from the psychology side, and he looks at the Kundalini Yoga. And that's a great book, Carl Jung's book on Kundalini. But the Kundalini Yoga is about accessing higher consciousness, higher levels of awareness. And it's not something that you're chasing. It's something that you're really learning how to hold within you. So it's an energy within you. And if you practice it, you understand, because it truly is helping you. It's a tool, like I said, helping you to have a deeper experience of yourself and to be more connected to your body, more connected to your mind, and to also access more parts of your mind and be more connected deeper to your body and all of your nervous system, all of your systems of the body, all of the ways in which you're able to use the body, ways that you're able to tap in to the five senses and also beyond the five senses. And it's an experience of yourself, truly. And when you go into a Kundalini yoga class, it allows you to have a deeper experience of yourself. And for me, especially, it has allowed me to release addictions, release disconnection with myself. It's allowed me to become more neutral, more grounded, more clear-minded, and so many other things. So I want to talk a little bit about the technology and why it works. And I'm trying to do this quick and kind of bite size, but also give you a comprehensive picture. Okay, so it starts with the breath. Breath work is such a big part of Kundalini, and I love breath work. Breath work is growing. It's becoming more mainstream. A lot more people are understanding the power of breath work. And what breath work really does is it helps with the nervous system. It helps to expand the capacity of your nervous system. And how that shows up in our lives is we're able to do things that feel uncomfortable easier. We are not acting from fear or off of anxiety. We have a strong nervous system, strong capacity. And the breath work really helps with that. Now, breath work is a beautiful part of Kundalini Yoga, but it's not the only part. And so I'll go in a little bit more to kind of the criticisms on Kundalini Yoga. But if you think of breath work, like Yogi Bhajan definitely did not invent breath work. And breath work is not something that is just practiced in Kundalini Yoga, but it's a component. And that's one of the reasons why I love Kundalini Yoga, because it has these beautiful components that are all put together. So the next component is the repetition. So we go on to brain patterns. We do repetition to help create new neural pathways, to create new brain patterns. So if you've ever had trouble with overthinking, or you've been going with loops in your mind of thinking about thoughts that you don't want to think about, or you have anxiety, or you want to create new habits or new thoughts or new ideas, you can see when that's happening, it's repetition on autopilot from the subconscious. So we use repetition to replace old brain patterns with new ones, and it actually creates new neural pathways. It's really incredible. And then we also work with energy to have emotional releases, move the energy in your body, balance out the chakras. Each of the chakras have different energies within our bodies, with our organs, and they have different characteristics as far as how that plays out in our everyday life, how that's manifested with our personality, and how we show up in the world. So you're working on your nervous system, your brain, and your energy all at the same time, which I love. So we have the breath work that does that. We also have the meditation. Meditation is so widely known now. It used to be something that not everybody understood or believed in or knew the benefits of, but I think now it's very widespread. Everybody knows that meditation is so helpful, and there's many different ways to meditate. So in Kundalini Yoga, there is a certain way that we meditate that's really powerful, that helps us to access different brain states. And it's so helpful to clear the mind, to allow you to be calm, to release anxiety. And it really helps with mental health. It has helped immensely with my mental health. Also, if you look at manifesting, every manifestation teacher out there, and also performance, whenever you look at like biohacking or performance or manifestation, or anyone that's really talking about reaching your full potential, they always talk about meditating. And when I started hearing all about meditation, I was like, okay, well, how do I actually do it? And so that's why I love to have the tool as a Kundalini teacher to help my clients with, to pass on, to continue to go deeper with the practice itself, because instead of just talking about it and instead of just talking about concepts like so many people do on podcasts, which is so incredible, and instead of just talking about meditation and saying, meditation is a great tool to, access this certain result that you're looking for, as a Kundalini teacher, I'm able to give people specific meditations that work on specific parts of their nervous system, specific parts of their brain, and specific parts of their energy to then get them the specific result that they're working on. So that's really incredible. So we have the breath work, the meditation, and then we have the mudra. So the mudras are different hand positions, which are also used in many different forms of yoga, like we know, like the with the Gyan chakra. And so the mudras are like acupressure points, and it does different things to our bodies. So you do different mudras. I'll be going in really deep in the Kundalini teacher training with all the different mudras, all the different finger placements, how that's connected to the mind, to the body, and what effect it has on you. So we work with the different mudras and we work with the asanas. So it's different movements that work with your body to create different angles and triangles with the body. So we use our body as a tool, and it works with the repetition. So typically, and, there's thousands of kriyas, we call it, which is a series of asanas or movements. And they have certain timings and certain sequences for specific purposes. And basically what you're doing is you are using repetition typically in each movement. And with Kundalini, you're doing things for longer than you typically do because it helps to create the repetition needed to shift your energy and to shift the brain patterns. So in Kundalini Yoga, there's thousands of kriyas, thousands of meditations. You're doing different postures. You're holding different postures or doing different things for a specific amount of time. And you start to bring up different emotions. You start to bring up different things from your subconscious, and allows you to bring them up so you can clear them so they can change. So it's really an experience. It's aptogenetic to what you're working on because it's your own energy. It's your own nervous system, your own energy, and your own mind. So again, we have the breath work, we have the meditation, we have the mudra, we have the asanas, the different movements, and that's in kriya form. And then we have the mantra. So the mantras that we use are high vibrational, they're sacred sound frequencies that we tap into. It's called the NAAD science. And it uses the tongue and the roof of the mouth. And it also uses the frequencies. And it's really beautiful to learn more about. If you think of the roof of your mouth, I was taught as you think of it as a keyboard. And when our tongue touches the different places on the roof of our mouth, it activates certain parts of our brain, certain feelings, and then there's frequencies within the mantra. And you can feel that. You can feel when somebody says a certain thing or when you say a certain thing, it has a quality to it. It has an energy, it has a frequency, right? And so that goes really deep with the Kundalini mantras. It's Gurmukhi, which is originated from the Sikhs, but Kundalini Yoga is not a religion. It's just a component of it is the Gurmukhi mantra and more of like the sound and the frequency side of things. Then we also work with the gong and other sound to access certain frequencies and to help our cells, our body, our mind to elevate into higher frequency states. So as you can see, it's very comprehensive. And that's one of the reasons that I love it so much. And all of those things that I just mentioned, all of them you can get in an hour-long class or sometimes less, sometimes more. But, it's designed in a way where everything that I just said, you will experience in the course of a Kundalini Yoga experience, in a class that you will experience in the classes that I teach and practice. Then we have the whole consciousness, spiritual side of this that is, of course, up for interpretation. That is, of course, a different experience for everyone. But for me, Kundalini Yoga has been a tool to tap into higher consciousness, to tap in more spiritually, I've had so many incredible spiritual experiences that Kundalini Yoga has been a tool for me to access. And it has just helped me become more spiritual, more connected to the earth, more connected to my spirit guides, more connected to source energy, God, whatever you want to call that, more connected to just the group consciousness here on the planet, to see myself in other people and other people in me. Yoga means union. It's like the yoke, like the oneness. And as a practice, Kundalini Yoga has been the most powerful practice. And I've practiced lots of different types of yoga, and I love lots of different types of yoga. But for me, Kundalini Yoga has been the tool, the practice that has helped me to tap in most to my spiritual nature and just living as a more spiritual being in a more connected existence. And so it's just this idea of like, we're all spiritual beings having a human experience, and we have these bodies and these minds. And then we have these tools like yoga and meditation and breathwork and ways that they've been put together that we can use to be more connected to the spiritual, to the unseen realms, to our gifts and our senses that are just beyond this physical body. And it goes into sound. It's like how dogs can access different sounds than humans can't. There's all these different ways that we can access different experiences, different connections, different senses through tools. I hope this is helpful so far. Okay. So where it comes from. Okay, now a little bit more about where it comes from. I talked a little bit about the ancient roots and how it is hard to trace back everything. And because of the different interpretations, the different paths, the different families of yoga and where they all originated from, it's a little challenging. But what I understand, and through my research, is there are the Vedic text and there's the Upanishads, and it's basically where yoga was first dated back to or recorded. And that's where the tantric was first recorded or originated, or have it as the first time that we're able to date back to any history or where it comes from. And then we also have like the chakra system that dates back, but everything with any type of yoga dates back thousands and thousands of years, right? And so you can look back and kind of dive into the different histories and how then the different paths were created. And I'm going to go into this much deeper in my Kundalini teacher training. So I'm very excited to bring in experts, bring in also different guest teachers, and also books that we'll be going into and more detailed specifics, because obviously I can't go into all of that in a short podcast episode here. But I think the main thing when you hear a lot of the criticism around Kundalini Yoga is that it was not created by one person. So that's kind of the key piece of it. So now let's move into the modern layers, or how it was brought here, how it's practiced more as a modern practice and technology. So what I understand is that it originated from India, and it was with Guru Ram Das. And like I've shared before, it was through like the tantric and the Laya yoga families that then go up into the different yogic paths, right? And there's components of Kundalini Yoga that touch multiple of the different paths and lineages, but it dates directly to the tantric and the Laya lineages. So there is the Sikh religion, which I understand some people that are Sikhs religiously practice Kundalini Yoga. I think in some places they don't practice it at all. And there's many people that are Sikh in religion that have never practiced Kundalini Yoga before or don't practice it at all. And then there are so many people that practice Kundalini Yoga that are not connected at all into the Sikh religion. So that's kind of a distinction that's very important to understand. But Yogi Bhajan brought this system to the West in 1969 to Los Angeles initially, and then Kundalini Yoga spread, and different teachers modified it, and it's obviously grown and evolved like every yoga, and how every yoga and any exercise has like many different teachers, and everybody kind of puts their own spin on it and creates it in their own expression and passes it on. And people that resonate with that expression are able to receive that expression from them and pass it on in their own way, right? So Yogi Bhajan was the person that brought it here to the West and had this modern structure to it. So there is the Gurmukhi mantras that do connect to the Sikh religion, which I shared more about. And then there's the connection to Guru Ram Das with the Kundalini Yoga line. So what we really have today is an ancient yogic energy practice that comes from these paths and from these families, if you will, of yoga with the Sikh Gurmukhi mantras and the devotional elements. So that is what's created in the practice. Now, you can really choose what to take and what to leave with Kundalini Yoga. And many different teachers teach it in different ways because there are thousands of kriyas for all sorts of different things, thousands of them. And there's thousands of meditation and there's so many mantras as well. So you can really take what you love. And that's what a lot of teachers do. Some people do way more of like the vigorous, more like exercise vibe type of kriyas, and that works really well for them. Some people use a lot of more of like the fire, heavier breath work, and that works really well for them. Some people use just more of the meditative practice of it and the more gentle aspects of it and more of the calming breaths. So that's the thing, is you can really use it in a way that works for you. There are definitely so many people that are trying to debunk Kundalini Yoga as a whole, say that it's not real at all. And I think that's something in general that we see a lot with a lot of healing modalities. I'm not taking away that there is a direct, like very specific kind of attack in philosophy on Kundalini. But I do want to say that I do see it, I guess, a lot where people are trying to debunk. Even in the Breath of Fire documentary, they're kind of shunning and making fun of and putting down even just like spiritual spaces or using Palo Santo or creating a spiritual environment. They're definitely trying to make fun of that or kind of debunk that it has any validity. But if you've ever done rituals for yourself, it's really, you definitely have the science, right? Like even Palo Santo, there's like science on it, right? Like how it cleanses literally the air. But then there's also this spiritual vibe and feeling to it, right? Like it ignites your senses and it feels good if you resonate it. It creates a component to an environment that feels good. Like any event or space that any of us can create, there's certain things that help to create a frequency, to create a vibe, right? And a lot of things that create a high vibe or are these healing modalities that tap into higher awareness, higher consciousness, activate self-expression, activate connection to a higher power, to a source, I see being debunked. And there's many different reasons why that happens. Would people or groups of people want to debunk spiritual practices, right? And that could be a whole podcast in itself. But I think like when something doesn't neatly fit into this like specific measurable framework, then it tends to get questioned. And yes, there's the science. Yes, there's the technology. Like, yes, there's the history aspect to it. Yes, you can go deep with meditation in general, mantra in general, mudra in general, asanas and like the body and the psychology and the mind and all of that. Like you can go deep into all of that. But then there's also just this practical side of breath and focus and repetition. And these are things that we know impact the body and the brain. And then there's just also the spiritual experience and just a experience, right? Like that we all have different experiences with different modalities. I'm sure there's people that have tried meditation and hate it and think it's horrible. I've heard people say, they've tried a sound bath and they think it's the worst thing in the world. And then some people try a sound bath and they love it and it's the best thing. And they have this incredible healing experience that's so supportive and helpful for them. So of course, with anything, you're going to have those two polarities. You're going to have the people that hate it and the people that love it, the people that want to debunk it and criticize it and try to do everything that they can to paint a bad picture of it, say it's not real and prove that there's no validity or like no truth to it. And then you're going to have the people over here that love it and have all these transformational stories and experiences with it where it resonates so deeply and it creates this amazing transformation for them. So I fully understand that there's this huge polarity. And I fully understand also that people have had different experiences with Kundalini Yoga based on the person that they practice it with, and also based on when they practiced it, because we're also moving in time. And so as the world evolves, all of these practices evolve and it moves from ancient practices to modern practices. So that's also a component to it. So for me, an important question that I ask and that I don't think that can be debunked is what happens when people actually practice it? And what is my experience with it? And what are other people's experiences with it? Because you don't have to believe in something or fully understand every single part of all of the different things that we've been talking about for it to work. You just have to experience it and have the experience. That's kind of why it can be a hard subject to talk about, because it's very complex, but because we are very complex and yoga is very complex and lineage is very complex and ancient traditions and spiritual cultures and traditions and religions. It's very complex. So for me, the question isn't, can somebody debunk this? And it's also not like, do I understand every different part of how all of this connects? Because you don't have to believe in something to work. You just have to experience it. And if you're able to have an experience of something that works for you and gives you a transformation and changes your life and helps your mental health and supports your body function and your mind function and your connection to spirituality, I mean, that's a choice for you, right? And that's like a sovereign decision that we all have to make. And I completely understand that some people choose not to practice it. Of course, we all have our different things. We all have different things that resonate with us. And we all have different types of yoga and different ways of practicing that resonates for us. And that's beautiful. That's great. And that's so normal. We're not all going to love the same things. We're not going to all have the same experience with the same thing, right? Okay. So let's get into the cult conversation because people are obsessed with cults right now. I think it's very fascinating. I'm very interested in it as well. And there's all these documentaries on cults and people are understanding like with the Kundalini conversation of like, was it a cult with Yogi Bhajan? Did Guru Jagat create it as a cult? There's this line, and I think it's very important to understand there's this line between a spiritual practice and cults. Okay. So the main things as I've researched cults and kind of, gone into it, and I've definitely had friends that have been a part of religious cults or been born into cults, totally separate from Kundalini. And I just find it interesting. And so defined typically with cults, there's a lot of control. There's a lack of autonomy and there's an inability to question. So for me, Kundalini Yoga as a practice is the breath. It's the meditation. It's the awareness. It's something that you can engage with and use as a tool that you can question, that you can practice however you want with whomever you want. You can step away from, you can go deeper with, you can practice on your own. You can practice in community. It's very different from controlling somebody. It's a tool that empowers you to think for yourself. And that's very different than a system that tells you not to. And so, yes, I think that there were kind of these like cults or like groups formed that used it in a way that had more cult qualities. But Kundalini Yoga as a whole, and like I said, I've been practicing this for almost 15 years. I've practiced with all, the biggest kind of gurus who are now in their 70s and 80s. And I've been like in these communities. I know a lot of these people, especially in LA. It's a big hub in general for yoga, in general for wellness and spirituality, and for yoga, all the different types of yoga. So I've practiced with a lot of people in a lot of communities in a lot of different ways. And I've never seen like the cult side of it. So of course, anybody could go get certified in Kundalini Yoga and then create some weird community where they start telling people what to do and turn it into that. And I think that's a lot of the problems that people are kind of questioning and coming forward with around Yogi Bhajan, is that there was some of that going on. It was also like the 70s, and I've studied, and from what I've studied, there was a lot more of that going on in general with like spirituality, with religion. And of course, there has been a lot of that have come forward that is super messed up around different spiritual teachers, around different religious leaders, around spirituality, and just people that were misusing it or people that were using it to control other people. And I do not condone or am not affiliated with any of that. And I think if you know me, if you've been practicing for a while, if you know my work, you know that I literally stand for the complete opposite of that. And I would never, ever, ever, ever agree to any of that or let anybody control me. I would never have lack of autonomy ever. And I would question everything. That's literally who I am. So if anybody was trying to make me be in some cult and tell me what to do, I can assure you that I would be like out of that a long time ago. Yeah. There's, different groups. Like there's one called the Source Family. That's a crazy, trippy story. That was in the 70s, where they like took different spiritual practices and they were practicing some Kundalini, and it was mixed with this centralized leadership, like cult leader dude. And that's where things got distorted and disconnected and can get a little muddy, because it's like, that was not Yogi Bhajan. That was, I forget his name. I'll have to look it up. But I did watch that documentary. But different people have used all these different spiritual practices, but that's so different than the actual practice itself. Okay. There's so much more I could go into. I think a big part that I'll just kind of wrap all this up with is the chakras. The Kundalini Yoga works with the chakras. The upper chakras are more connected to our intuition, our vision. The lower chakras are more like the grounding, the money, the action. And so that's why I love Kundalini Yoga. We're working with the Kundalini energy that's at the base of our spine. But if you Google Kundalini energy, it talks about Kundalini energy rising, but that can be totally separate from Kundalini Yoga. So there are different ways to activate the Kundalini energy that's inside of all of us. Kundalini Yoga is one way, but some people just raise their Kundalini Yoga spontaneously or through other forms. And for me, Kundalini Yoga has been like a safe, natural way, and it has naturally progressed for me, awakening my Kundalini energy. But like I said, there's Kundalini activations, which is totally separate from Kundalini Yoga. It's where somebody is trained and they, as a practitioner, are helping to activate somebody's Kundalini Yoga. I'm not trained in that. I know a little bit about that, but not a lot about that. It's totally separate from what I'm doing and what we're talking about in the Kundalini Yoga. The Kundalini Yoga works with all of the chakras. And the way that I teach it specifically, I do it in a really balanced way to work with the lower and the upper chakras so that you're not getting like disconnected with your body too high in like the realms of the crown chakra and being connected to the unseen realms, and just, it's beautiful, all of that. But so you're also integrating it into your body with the elements, connecting it to the earth and the lower chakras. And that's where the way that I practiced it really helps with like grounding and money and taking action and like using everything that you're able to access spiritually and bringing it into the body and then using it to manifest in your life. So your upper chakras open your vision, and then your lower chakras create your reality and help you ground it into your reality. So that's one of the things that I love most about Kundalini. And I really structure my practices around that because of how powerful it's been for me. Another thing that's really powerful to talk about is your intuition. Kundalini Yoga helps to activate your intuition and develop your intuition. So I could talk for hours about this. I have so many stories about myself and my own experiences that are so positive with Kundalini. If you know about my story and you've followed me or you're just learning more about me, I have so many stories of how this practice has changed my life. And now that I've been teaching it for so long and I've passed it on to so many other people, I've had the beauty in seeing how, no, it's not just for me. It's also for so many thousands of other people. And for the people that resonate with it and get it and feel it and connect to it and are able to have an experience that's positive for them, I'm so happy for you. And that's what I want to pass on. And that's what I'm so excited about teaching. No matter what anybody says about it, it's about what does it actually do for your life and how do you relate to it? And how can you use it as a tool to experience a transformation and have it benefit you and everyone else around you and those in your life? That's why I'm really passionate about it. I'm passionate about it living on. It is really sad to me that a lot of people have left Kundalini Yoga with just all of the allegations against Yogi Bhajan and Guru Jagat and just trying to debunk the practice in general. And just in general, a lot of people trying to debunk spiritual modalities and, how there have been teachers that have abused it or have misused spiritual practices and have misused their power. And it is really unfortunate. It does make me really sad because it is such a powerful force. It's such a powerful practice. And we as humans can become so empowered and become such powerful forces through these tools. And so, that's why I decided to create my own in-tune teacher training that is not dogmatic. It's not connected to any one teacher. And I'm really excited. I'm kind of feel like a rebel in a way of I'm creating this and I'm pulling together the beauties of the lineage. I'm pulling together the beautiful tools, the breathwork, the meditation, the mudras, the asana, the mantra, the sound, the technology of our voices with the mantra and the chanting, the technology of the gong and the sound. I love sound and sound bowls. If you're into that, is going to be a portion of this training. There's going to be the sound and frequency portion of it, the mind, the body, the breath, the repetition, just the comprehension of all of it. And I'm bringing it through my modern lens, my modern approach, and just the world that we're living in. So I'm also going to bring in how to create your own method within Kundalini Yoga. How do you create the parts of it that you love into a way that has helped you and can help others? Because there's so many different ways that people need it and so many different ways that we can create ways to practice it. Because like I said, there's thousands of practices within it. So I'm going to teach you how to create your own method, your own way to work with it that resonates with you, that is connected to your unique imprint and your unique gifts. And then also, if you're interested in how to share that with other people and how to create an online business or put it in practice, whether it's with retreats or just in person or also online, and how you can figure out which way works best for you to either incorporate it into sessions that you're already doing or a spiritual business that you're already working with or modalities. A lot of people that are already coming into the teacher training are using it to weave it into other modalities, like into their therapy practices or into their Reiki practices or into their hypnotherapy practices. And that's why I'm so excited about this teacher training. So it's not like I'm trying to sell you something as I'm talking about Kundalini Yoga, but I did want to share because it is such a big part of my journey that I have this to offer, and I just opened it and it's not starting until September 2026. So I'll leave that link below. But kind of in conclusion to this whole topic, I understand and I know it's a very sensitive topic with Yogi Bhajan, Guru Jagat, just people that have not had a good experience with it. And I completely understand that. And I have a lot of compassion around that. And I think we can use it as a tool. We can relate to it in a way that works best for us. And I'm committed to help to bring that forward. So Sat Nam, thank you for listening. Comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I did have a lot of people kind of attacking me and coming at me from these groups, and specifically the producers connected to the Breath of Fire documentary, the people that were connected to Guru Jagat that were not happy with Guru Jagat, and a lot of the people that were connected to this documentary. And they, really were pretty harsh and kind of attacking energy, but it really doesn't bother me. I feel like I can handle it. It's fine. So I'm sure they'll maybe find this too, but I would really appreciate if you can leave comments below this video and just support me in sharing my truth with it, support me in this transmission and just a different perspective getting out there. So I'm sending you so much love and come back for the next episode and I'll see you soon. Satnam. Thank you for stepping through the portal with me today. If you loved this episode, I would so appreciate you leaving a review and email it to podcast@intunebybrit.com to grab my free spiritual CEO guide, ChatGPT prompts for content and daily schedules and checklists, and my morning ritual checklist to help you to stay aligned and in flow. Come back for the next episode and let's keep rising, expanding, and flowing together through the portal. Satnam, lots of love.